April 3rd, 2021, 11:14 a.m., Baltimore, Maryland. My son's funeral. A gray morning, thick with church bells, wet pavement, and the kind of silence that sinks into your bones. I stood beside the casket, fingers gripping the railing because my legs wouldn't cooperate. Grief has a way of hollowing a man out, scooping him from the inside, leaving only a shell that remembers how to breathe out of habit, not purpose. That was the moment Victoria leaned in, my daughter-in-law, dressed in a tailored black suit that looked more business-ready than grieving, and whispered the sentence that split my life into before and after. "Quit crying and pack your bags, you're moving out." I didn't react, couldn't. At first, I thought the grief was making me hallucinate cruelty, but she repeated it, slower this time, as if speaking to someone hard of hearing. "Pack your bags. The house is mine now." My son hadn't been lowered into the ground yet. Family members stared ahead, pretending not to hear. A few shifted uncomfortably, but none intervened. My daughter-in-law had a certain kind of power, social polish, real estate connections, a reputation for being decisive, and people feared decisive women more than they admitted. I kept breathing, slow, controlled. "You can't be serious," I whispered. She offered a tight smile. "You've lived there long enough. Mark would want me to be supported, and I can't support myself if you're draining the house. 30 days, then you're out." 30 days. 30 days after burying my son, I was expected to bury my home too. But pain does something to the mind, sharpening some memories, blurring others. In that moment, a small detail returned to me like a candle lit in darkness. My son had added me to the deed after his mother died. Not legally necessary, but his way of saying, "Dad, you'll always have a place." Victoria didn't know that. Not yet. After the burial, rain began to fall in steady sheets as people drifted away. Victoria stayed dry under a large black umbrella, directing guests with the brisk efficiency of someone managing an open house rather than mourning a husband. She waved at her real estate colleagues, 3 of them, who had showed up more for networking than sympathy. "That's the property I mentioned," she told one of them, pointing directly at me as if I were a broken appliance she needed removed. I felt the crack inside me widen. I returned home alone. The house felt different, quieter, as if sensing it was next on the chopping block. Victoria's words echoed through the hallway. "You're moving out." I walked into the living room, still dressed in my funeral suit, and sat on the couch. A framed photo of Mark, my son, stared back at me from the mantel. 28 years old, alive, laughing. I whispered, "What did you marry, son? Who did you leave me with?" No answer came, but something inside me shifted. I realized I wasn't just grieving. I was being erased. And that was the moment,
woke up the next morning
the
with the sun
precise
barely
second
breaking through the
I
blinds.
decided
The
Victoria
house still
would not
soaked in
write
that
the ending of
strange
my
silence
life.
that follows a funeral.
Not in 30
Grief
days.
sits differently on a
Not
home.
ever.
It folds into the walls, sinks into the carpet, nestles into the corners like dust. But something else sat there too, a presence that wasn't mine. Victoria's intentions had already begun moving through the house, like a cold draft under every door. When I walked downstairs, I found her in the living room, coffee in hand, blazer still on, phone pressed to her ear. Her voice carried the tone of someone already 3 decisions ahead. "Yes, the square footage should appraise well," she said. "I'll send photos once the old decor is removed." Old decor. My decor. My wife's decor. My son's childhood living room. Gone, apparently, in her mind. When she noticed me standing at the bottom of the stairs, she didn't smile. She didn't soften. She simply ended her call and said, "Good, you're up. We need to discuss timelines." I repeated, "Timelines? For your move-out. The sooner you relocate, the sooner I can list the home." I stared at her. "You can't list what isn't yours." Her lips curved, not into a smile but into something close to amusement. "Mark left everything to me. It's standard. And you, well, you're retired. You're aging. A senior community will give you support." She said support like an insult. "I'm 70, I replied, "not incapacitated." Victoria shrugged. "Emotionally, you are a burden, and I won't compromise my future because you can't take care of yourself." A crack opened inside me, a deep, painful one. For decades, I had lived quietly, never expecting gratitude, never demanding space. I helped with their mortgage when they needed it. I repaired their cars. I babysat. I cooked holiday meals. But in one breath, in one morning, I had become a burden. She walked into the hallway, heels clicking sharply on the floorboards, and slapped a stack of papers onto the table. 30 days, she said again. "I've already blocked out tours with my real estate team. Don't make this harder." Something about the way
Her
she
handwriting
said
covered the
tours
margins,
made my
budget
skin
notes,
crawl.
projected
I
list
picked up the
prices, to-do
papers.
lists like trash basement boxes useless, remove old family photos, neutralize rooms to erase outdated style. Erase outdated style, erase the past, erase my son, erase me. That afternoon, I walked room to room, touching the furniture my wife once polished by hand, the curtains Mark helped install when he was 12, the mantel where his high school graduation photo still hung. Victoria followed behind me, muttering, "We'll remove this. We'll replace that. This has no resale value." Every word chipped at me like a chisel. By evening, I understood something bitter but necessary. Victoria didn't just want the house. She wanted a life without me in it. And for the first time since the funeral, I felt something stronger than grief. Not anger, not spite, but resolve. Because she had miscalculated one thing. She thought I was powerless. She had no idea what waited in the basement, what documents my son left behind, what protections he built long before she ever entered his
On the
life.
third day
She didn't
after
know
the
she was
funeral,
standing on a
Victoria
landmine.
left early
And she had just
for a
given me a clock.
strategy meeting
30
with her
days.
real estate
30 days to
partners.
turn the tables.
Her heels clicked out the front door like gunshots. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I exhaled for the first time in hours. Victoria believed the house was hers. She believed I had nowhere to go. She believed I had nothing left to fight with. But she didn't know the basement. No one did. Not even Mark. It was the only part of the house I kept untouched after my wife died. A place of dust, old lamps, boxes of baby clothes, tax returns, and memory. Victoria had dismissed it as old junk. But decades of life were down there, pieces of a marriage, a childhood, a family. And somewhere in that sea of cardboard was something I hadn't opened in years. A locked metal file chest. Mark gave it to me the year he got married, saying, "Dad, keep our important papers safe, okay?" I hadn't thought about it since. But as I walked down the creaking basement steps, I felt a strange certainty. If Mark had protected me in life, he must have tried to protect me in death, too. The basement air was cool, still holding the scent of old wood. Light filtered through the half window, catching dust motes, floating like suspended memories. I knelt beside the file chest. The lock was stiff, but it opened. Inside were folders labeled in Mark's handwriting. House, deed, insurance, beneficiary, retirement, trust docs. My pulse quickened. One folder, thicker, sealed, marked with a red tab, was labeled, "For Dad, only if something happens." My hand shook as I opened it. The first page stopped my breath. The Porter Family Trust. Value $853,000. Primary trustee, Stephen Porter. Legal owner of residence, Stephen Porter. Not Victoria. Not jointly held, not left to the surviving spouse. Me. My knees nearly buckled. For years, I believed Mark and Victoria were co-owners. But the trust papers told a different story. The house, insurance payouts, and Mark's retirement distributions all flowed into a protected trust with my name as
straight
trustee.
to Collins and Hard Estate
He had
Law.
set it up
I had
after
known
Mark's
Margaret
mother
Collins
passed
for 20
away,
years.
wanting
Sharp,
me to have
discreet,
long-term
brilliant.
security.
A woman who
And
understood
he
real estate
never
law better than
told
anyone Victoria had ever
Victoria.
networked with. When I walked into her office, Margaret took one look at my face and closed the door behind me. "What happened?" she asked softly. I placed the trust documents on her desk. She read in silence. Her expression slowly shifted from curiosity to disbelief to something I can only describe as controlled fury on my behalf. "Stephen," she said finally, "Victoria is attempting to sell a house she does not own. She has no legal standing to evict you. The trust overrides everything." I exhaled shakily. "What do I need to do?" She leaned forward. "Nothing yet. Let her dig deeper. Let her schedule more showings. Let her list it publicly. And then," Margaret smiled, not cruelly, but with the confidence of someone holding the truth in her hands, "then we deliver the counterattack." She gathered the documents, sliding them into a sleek folder. "I will draft a cease and desist. But more importantly, Stephen, you need to be prepared for a public confrontation. Victoria built her reputation at Premier Realty. When this breaks, it will break loudly." I nodded slowly. Margaret continued, "You're not just protected. You're the legal owner. And when we reveal the trust and the deed, she'll lose every client who saw her conduct today." For the first time since Mark's death, I felt something other than grief. I felt purpose. Margaret stood, offering her hand. "Shall we begin?" "Yes. It's time."
All stepping around my memories like they were outdated furniture. Victoria stood in the center of it all, clipboard in hand, smiling with the polished confidence of someone about to finalize a major sale. "There he is," she announced loudly when she saw me at the bottom of the stairs, "the current occupant." Occupant. Not homeowner, not father-in-law, not grieving parent, just occupant. I felt something shift inside me, sharp, painful, clean. A woman from one of the couples approached her. "Will the older gentleman be relocating soon? We'd prefer a clean transfer." Victoria flashed a rehearsed smile. "Oh, absolutely. We're moving him to a senior community. He needs more support." Support. Again said like a slur. The photographer interrupted, lifting his camera. "Should I avoid him in the shots, or is he part of the before photos?" Laughter. Real laughter. Victoria didn't defend me. She didn't correct him. She didn't show even a flicker of shame. Instead, she stepped closer and said, as if I were deaf, "You heard him. Please stay out of the rooms we're staging. You're distracting." Distracting. At my son's open house. That was the crack moment. The snap inside me so clean, so sharp, that even the air felt different. I turned and walked out without a word. I didn't go to a friend. I didn't go to a relative.
Probably because
I
he
didn't
knew
even
her.
go to the
Probably
cemetery.
because he saw this coming. I kept reading, each page hitting harder than the last. If any party attempts to evict, coerce, or financially exploit the trustee, all assets revert immediately to trustee control. Victoria's handwriting suddenly made sense. Her frantic notes, her urgency, her push to get me out. She didn't know about the trust. She only saw a house she assumed was hers, a house she was planning to sell, illegally. As the realization washed over me, I felt something crack open. Not grief, not anger, but a sharp, rising clarity. Victoria wasn't the one holding the cards. I was. When I came back upstairs, she was already home, standing with her arms crossed, irritated. "You need to clear out the basement," she said sharply. "It's all useless clutter." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since my son died, I felt steady. "No," I said quietly. "There are things down there you shouldn't touch." She scoffed. "You don't make the rules here." But she was wrong. She just didn't know it yet. Because the documents in my hand weren't just paper. They were the fuse, and the explosion was coming. Victoria struck her next blow on a Sunday morning, 8 days after the funeral, when grief still felt raw enough to peel skin. I came downstairs to find strangers in my living room. 3 real estate agents, 2 young couples, 1 photographer with a wide-angle lens.
Victoria believed she was weeks away from owning my home. She didn't realize she was hours away from losing her entire career. The confrontation didn't take place in a courtroom. It didn't even take place in my home. It took place in the one place Victoria thought she was untouchable, Premier Realty's weekly showcase meeting. Margaret insisted we go unannounced. Predators hide best in private, she said. Expose her in her kingdom. Premier Realty's office sat inside an old converted warehouse on the edge of Baltimore. Brick walls, tall windows, polished floors, and the faint smell of lemon cleaner. When we walked in, 20 agents sat around a glass conference table sipping coffee while Victoria led her presentation with the confidence of a woman selling the world. "And now," she said, clicking her remote, "I'm excited to present my newest listing, an exceptional property with significant equity potential, closing expected within 30 days. My house appeared on the screen. My living room, my porch, my late wife's hydrangeas blooming under the window. A few agents murmured admiringly. Victoria continued, glazing over details with rehearsed charm. The current occupant will be transitioning to a senior facility, making the home move-in ready. Occupant. The word hit me like a shove. Margaret leaned toward me. "Now," she whispered. We stepped forward. Victoria saw us immediately, and the blood drained from her face. "Stephen, what do you—" Margaret cut her off like a scalpel. "Miss Porter, we're here regarding your illegal listing." The room went still. "What?" an agent asked, frowning. Margaret opened her briefcase and laid out the documents like a dealer laying down the winning hand in a quiet, deadly game. The trust deed, the beneficiary documentation, the insurance assignment.
The clause preventing eviction or sale, all with Mark's signature, all legally binding. Victoria's voice cracked. This is a misunderstanding. Mark left everything to me." "No," Margaret said. "Mark protected his father because he knew you might do precisely what you're doing now. Gasps spread around the room like wildfire. Another agent spoke. "Victoria, you told us it was your property." Her face flushed red. I was misled." I finally spoke. "You held an open house at my son's funeral." The room erupted. Whispers, sharp inhales, confusion, disgust. Someone muttered, "That's disgusting." Another said, "She's done." Victoria reached for the papers with shaking hands. Margaret slid them away. "These are copies," she said. "The originals have already been filed with the county. Your listing violates the law and your license agreement." The branch manager stepped forward, face pale. "Victoria, is any of this true?" She opened her mouth, closed it. Then, quietly, "Yes." The room erupted again. He removed her ID badge from her blazer himself. "You're suspended pending investigation. Gather your things." Her colleagues wouldn't look at her. Her former friends stepped back.
Her reputation, decades of ambition, calculation, and performance collapsed in less than 5 minutes. When she finally looked at me, her eyes were wet. "Stephen, I didn't mean—" I lifted a hand gently. "No, not here." She turned and walked out, shoulders shaking, her heels no longer sharp and confident, just hollow echoes fading down a hallway. As the door shut behind her, something quiet settled in my chest. Not triumph, not revenge, just release. The kind that comes when the truth finally stands up for itself. The confrontation didn't unfold in my living room, and it didn't happen in a courtroom either. It happened in the one place Victoria believed she was invincible. Premier Realty, Baltimore's largest, most polished real estate office, an old warehouse converted into a cathedral of glass walls, industrial beams, stone countertops, and agents dressed like they were on magazine covers. This was Victoria's domain, the place she built her reputation, brick by brick, charm by charm, lie by lie. Margaret walked beside me, her heels clicking sharply across the polished floor. She carried a leather briefcase full of evidence, truth packed into neat folders. I didn't carry anything. I didn't need to. My presence was enough. Inside the main conference room, a weekly showcase meeting was underway. 20 agents sat in a semicircle as Victoria presented slides of her newest listings on a massive screen. She was radiant, smiling, gesturing, her voice carrying the polished warmth of a woman who could sell the ocean to a man drowning in it. "And with the occupant relocating to a senior community, we expect a swift closing within 30 days. Then my house filled the screen. My porch, my hydrangeas, my wife's old rocking chair. My life.
Beautiful space.
A few colleagues murmured
Can't believe
appreciatively.
she snagged this listing. Victoria paused, beaming. She had no idea the oxygen in the room was about to change. Margaret whispered, "Now." We stepped forward. Victoria turned, and when she saw me, her skin went pale. When she saw Margaret, it drained even further. "Stephen?" she stammered. "Why are you—" Margaret didn't let her finish. "Miss Porter," she said calmly, "you are presenting a property you have no legal authority to sell." The room froze. Someone coughed. Someone shifted in their seat. The manager frowned. "Victoria, what is she talking about?" Margaret set the documents on the conference table, one after another, like a surgeon laying out instruments. 1, the Porter Family Trust. 2, the legal deed naming me sole trustee. 3, the insurance payout documents. 4, the clause prohibiting eviction or sale. All signed by Mark. The shock in the room rippled outward like a stone hitting water. Victoria's voice cracked. This is not accurate. Mark would never—" "Mark did," Margaret said. "He created legal protection for his father. You attempted to evict a beneficiary and sell trust-secured property, without authority, without ownership, without decency." A murmur spread through the agents. "Is this real? Illegal."
Victoria grabbed
She
the
lied
papers
to us.
with shaking
She
hands,
listed a house she
as if she
didn't
could
own.
erase the ink with panic. But truth doesn't smudge. The branch manager stepped forward. "Victoria, did you know about this trust?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her silence was an answer. He removed her Premier Realty name badge right there in front of everyone. "You're suspended immediately. Pack your belongings. I will be notifying the licensing board." The room didn't look at her with sympathy. They looked at her with betrayal. As Victoria's composure collapsed, her voice broke into jagged pieces. "Stephen, please, I didn't mean for it to go this far." I held up a hand, gently, not angry, not triumphant, just final. This was never about me, I said quietly. It was about your entitlement, and now the truth has come home. She cried, real tears this time, the kind that come when a person's reflection finally cracks in their own hands. She walked out shaking, her heels tapping like a soft, broken metronome. When we stepped back into the parking lot, sunlight washed over the cars, the pavement, and the air between us. Margaret exhaled. You did well. No, I said softly. The truth did well. For the first time since Mark's funeral, the world felt balanced, not healed, not restored, but aligned.
It was
Not
the natural
revenge,
consequence of the lies she
just
built herself upon.
responsibility.
The days after the premier Realty
And
Showdown felt
Victoria's
strangely
downfall
quiet.
was not
peaceful,
my victory.
Quiet. Quiet the way a house feels after a storm has ripped through it and left the air heavy, still holding the aftertaste of lightning. The trust documents remained on my kitchen table like silent witnesses to everything that had unfolded. I found myself staring at Mark's handwriting more than once, tracing the curve of his letters with my foam. He had protected me even in death. That knowledge softened something sharp and aching inside me. Word spread quickly through Baltimore's real estate circles. By Monday, 5 agents had dropped Victoria from their upcoming deals. By Wednesday, her licensing board opened an investigation. By Friday, her landlord issued a notice. She had 30 days to relocate due to reputational risk impacting the business environment. Consequences. Not revenge. Just consequences. 1 week later, on a cold morning that tasted like rain, Victoria showed up at my door. Not with anger, not with demands, not even with tears streaming down her face. She looked deflated, a woman whose scaffolding had finally collapsed. Her voice was small. Stephen,
She stood in the living room,
May I
the same
come in?
living room she once photographed without asking,
I stepped
the same
aside.
space she tried to sell out from under me.
Boundaries
I want
did
to
not require
apologize,
cruelty.
she said, not because I was caught, but because I lost myself. I thought security was something I had to claw for. I thought this house was my future. I thought you didn't need it. I didn't speak. She swallowed hard. I didn't understand the trust. I assumed Mark didn't leave you anything. I assumed a lot of wrong things. I looked at her, not the villain, not the widow, not the woman who tried to erase me, but someone standing in the ruins of her own making. Victoria, I said quietly, you don't owe me perfection, but you owed me honesty and respect. Tears gathered in her eyes. I want to make things right. I don't expect to stay here. I know I've lost that, but her voice broke. I don't want Mark to be ashamed of me. Those words, they cracked something in both of us. I pointed toward the old oak box I'd placed on the dining table earlier that morning, filled with photographs, letters, ticket stubs, souvenirs of the life she and Mark actually lived. These belong to you, I said. They're the memories you built together. Take them, they're yours to keep. The house is not, but the love you two shared, that's not something I'm here to take from you. She pressed her hand over her mouth, crying quietly. After a long silence, she nodded. Thank you, she whispered. I will use this as a beginning, not an ending. She gathered the box gently, like it was the last fragile piece of her life that still mattered, and walked to the door. Before she stepped out, she turned back. I'm sorry,
That evening,
Stephen,
I stood in the
for all of it.
backyard under the early
Then she
winter
left.
sky.
The house
wind
was
moved
silent
through the
again,
hydrangeas
this time
my wife
not with
planted
grief,
decades
just
ago.
stillness.
I thought of her. I thought of Mark. I thought of a long road that brought me to this moment. And slowly, something inside me settled. Not triumph, not victory, just clarity. People talk about justice like it's a loud thing. Gavel strikes, raised voices, dramatic moments in crowded rooms. But sometimes justice is quiet. Sometimes it looks like a woman carrying a box of memories to her car. Sometimes it looks like an old man locking his door at night knowing no one can take his home again. Sometimes justice is simply the truth standing still long enough to be seen. If you allow others to rewrite your worth, they will. But if you stand firm in the truth, even shaking, you'll discover that dignity is the one inheritance no one can steal.